Tune into Nice Radio every Saturday at 7:30 a.m. for A View from the Outside, hosted by Brereton Horne. A View from the Outside takes a look at key issues affecting St. Vincent and the Grenadines and gives a global perspective on how these issues are viewed. Host Brereton Horne will examine a variety of topics to enlighten, stimulate debate, and explore solutions. Hear the facts, hear the real-life stories, hear A View from the Outside. Join Brereton Horne at 7:30 a.m. every Saturday on Nice Radio for A View from the Outside.
This society needs a spectacle. It might help us to see some people.
On A View from the Outside this week being the 1st of August 2020, we look at emancipation, E-M-A-N-C-I-P-A-T-I-O-N, emancipation, with the view being that Vincentian people still have a great deal of work to do to show that full emancipation is achieved, or full emancipation has been achieved. The Cambridge Dictionary defines emancipation as the act of freeing a person from another person's control. And it goes on to say that emancipation is the process of giving people social or political freedom and rights. I'll say that again. It goes on to say that emancipation is the process of giving people social or political freedom and rights. And the Oxford Dictionary states that emancipation is the fact or process of being set free from legal, social, or political restrictions. It is a liberation. Those definitions tell us that emancipation is to be free from the control of another person. It is important to note that control also refers to control of the mind. The definitions tell us that emancipation is not limited to one group of people. Emancipation is to be set free from restrictions, whether they be legal, social, or political. Emancipation is liberation. And we know that liberation is freedom from limits on thoughts or behavior. Of course, all of that has to be within the limits of the permissible boundaries of the law, although there may be times when civil disobedience is necessary. It is with those definitions in mind and with the knowledge that today, the 1st of August 2020, 182 years since the slaves in St. Vincent and the Grenadines were emancipated in 1838, following a 4-year period of so-called apprenticeship after slavery was abolished in 1834, while we, on A View from the Outside, share the view that the people of St. Vincent and the Grenadines still have a great deal of work to do to show that full emancipation has been achieved. When one looks at the hardships, struggles, sacrifice, and resilience of our ancestors and compares that to what the regime in St. Vincent and the Grenadines dishes out to the people and what the Vincentian people generally accept today, the question of whether full emancipation has been achieved by all Vincentians is a reasonable one. History has shown the struggles of ordinary people and people particularly of African descent, how they got to own lands in St. Vincent and the Grenadines. Dr. Adrian Fraser, one of the nation's most renowned historians, has written extensively and lucidly on the subject. His books, The 1935 Riots in St. Vincent, From Riots to Adult Suffrage, and Chatouillet, From Villain to National Hero, are widely available and are treasure troves of invaluable information. Bearing in mind those struggles of our ancestors and taking full account of former governments which genuinely embarked on ensuring that ordinary Vincentians own lands by having taken the lands out of the hands of plantation owners, it is inconceivable that the regime in St. Vincent and the Grenadines today seems bent on dispossessing ordinary people of their land. They seem bent on taking away the land from ordinary citizens. It must be noted here that in the face of the injustices meted out to the Vincentian people, the leader of the regime has immersed himself in the reparation movement, claiming to seek reparation on behalf of the very people who are oppressed and suppressed and dispossessed by the regime. They, the regime, from all reports, use threats of compulsory acquisition to dispossess ordinary Vincentians of their land and threaten to pay a price way below fair market value. Ras Shaka, with his lands at Bookament, and Dr. Wayne D. Murray and his wife, and their family, with their lands in the Murray's Village Rockies area, are two of the latest victims of what has been described as the regime's spiteful and iniquitous practice, especially against those who they perceive are not their supporters. Others, such as Randolph Toussaint, former commissioner of police, who died without having received compensation which the court ordered. Marcus de Freitas, former parliamentarian, who after a decade and a half is still languishing without compensation for his property. And Bigger Biggs, who has had his multi-million-dollar business destroyed and is pursued for his lands. And many others, including the former landowners of Argyll, have all fallen victims to the regime. When Vincentians remain silent and do not speak up and speak out and take action on this issue, which has been described as colonialization all over again, and other issues, one has to question whether full emancipation is achieved by all Vincentians. When Vincentians remain silent and do not speak out on seeing farmers, a once vibrant and independent sector in the nation's development, stripped of their independence, one has to question whether full emancipation has been achieved by all Vincentians. When Vincentians remain silent and do not speak up and speak out on watching the destruction of our young girls, including the aspiring model Yogi Farrell, who could well have been your own daughter, who felt the brunt of the regime, its agents and enablers, and the weight of the establishment, one has to question whether full emancipation has been achieved by all Vincentians. When Vincentians remain silent and do not speak up and speak out about the regime's practice of wanton and arbitrary arrest and detention of Vincentians, and releasing them without charge, or if charged, dropping all of the charges against them, one has to question whether full emancipation has been achieved by all Vincentians. When Vincentians continue to be seized by fear and are afraid to express an opinion, especially if that opinion is in contrast to the one dictated by the regime, one has to question whether full emancipation has been achieved by all Vincentians. When independent thought seems to be all but lost, something which is evident even among those who profess to be championing the cause of the dispossessed and the oppressed, and those who brand themselves as progressives, one has to question whether full emancipation has been achieved by all Vincentians. When Vincentians remain silent and do not speak up and speak out against the wanton political victimization against who they perceive or who are perceived not to support the regime, one has to question whether full emancipation has been achieved by all Vincentians. When a prominent member of society, the wife and sister of two lawmakers of the regime in the parliament of the country, and the sister of a member of the judiciary in the country, refuses to give evidence to bring alleged perpetrators of the allegation of robbery, which involved her own young son, one has to question whether full emancipation has been achieved by all Vincentians. When Vincentians accept the practice where public buildings and road infrastructure are left in dilapidation and ruins, for the better part of a parliamentary term, and then, in a mad rush at attempts at repairs just prior to elections, one has to question whether full emancipation has been achieved by all Vincentians. Full emancipation is not allowing yourself to fall prey to lumber, cement, and galvanize, distributed every election cycle in the regime's attempt to buy votes. Full emancipation is not to fall prey to the crassly branded love box and surrender your vote for that. Full emancipation is to free yourself from mental slavery and not fall for trinkets and shiny objects, similar to what is said to have occurred when the European colonizers invaded the lands of our ancestors. Evidence of full emancipation is taking decisive action and not follow blindly. Evidence of full emancipation is not being afraid to speak up and speak out and call wrong, wrong. Today, the 1st of August, 2020, Emancipation Day, presents an excellent opportunity for all Vincentians, particularly those of African descent, to reflect on the lessons of history and to remember from where we have come as a people. Today presents a timely opportunity for young people, 50% of whom are unemployed, those not so young, students of history, all Vincentians. The time has come to dust off the history books and refresh ourselves on the lessons which recount the struggles of the slaves on the plantation. In the quest for full emancipation, let us not have our ancestors and foreparents who have had to endure the precarious and treacherous journey across the Atlantic from Africa and the horrors that existed on the slave plantations. Let us not have them look on ashamedly at us. In the quest for full emancipation, let us remember how militant our people, our foreparents and ancestors were in their determination to try to leave a legacy for us. In the quest for full emancipation, let us remember that despite all of the might that the plantation owners possessed, our ancestors and foreparents were not afraid to resist and stand up for themselves, irrespective of any consequential punishment. In the quest for full emancipation, let us remember how our women, like some are today, have been at the forefront of the struggle. Let us pay homage to all of the brave men, and especially the women, who stand up and maintain their dignity in the face of all adversity. We, on A View from the Outside, urge everyone to ensure that the significance of today, Emancipation Day, is not lost. Those at home in St. Vincent and the Grenadines are encouraged to join the Emancipation Day event in Kingston at Magiclean, which is put on by Patches Knights and others, an event at which Dr. Adrian Fraser is one of the speakers. Or join some other event which expresses the sentiments of emancipation. Wherever you are in the world, we encourage you to get involved and support an Emancipation Day event. If you cannot be part of an event, we encourage you to find some time for quiet reflection and start a pattern of behavior which our ancestors will be proud of. A pattern of behavior as we all continue on the path to full emancipation. Let us take every step to ensure that all of our people are free from legal, social, and political restrictions. Let us endeavor to have all of our people enjoy liberation. Let us take every step to assist all of our people to obtain freedom from limits on thought and behavior. Let us do the things that will make our ancestors proud of us rather than ashamed of us. History has taught us that when people as a collective stand together and stand up for themselves, they can obtain the unimaginable. As we do that, let us all remember what Marcus Garvey said to the gathering that he addressed in Menelik Hall in Sydney, Nova Scotia, Canada in 1937. He said, and I quote, "We are going to emancipate ourselves from mental slavery, because whilst others might free the body, none but ourselves can free the mind," unquote. And as we all know, that quotation has been immortalized by Bob Marley in Redemption Song when he sang, "Emancipate yourself from mental slavery. None but ourselves can free our minds." Vincentians, yes we can. Let us all take this opportunity on this Emancipation Day to do what is necessary and right to free our minds, emancipate ourselves from mental slavery, and strive always to achieve full emancipation. Until next week, Randy and all of the listeners, this is Brereton Horne with A View from the Outside, with a reminder to send your feedback as usual to aviewfromtheoutside@hotmail.com. We also invite you to visit and like our Facebook page at A View from the Outside, and also visit and subscribe to our YouTube channel at JMB Horne. Have a pleasant Saturday, have a wonderful Sunday, and have a productive week ahead, with everyone taking decisive action to achieve full emancipation. All the best to you, Randy, and the listeners.